Join us as we take a tour of Sovereign Hill and Ballarat, exploring its gold rush history, picturesque village, and great food. We also explored Lake Wendouree and the Botanical Gardens at the heart of Ballarat. Hi and welcome to Dan's Destinations. There's a special kind of madness that builds an entire town just to cosplay the 1850s. This is Sovereign Hill, Ballarat's shrine to the gold rush, where mud, muskets and meat pies come together in a history lesson.
The powerhouse of the democratic movement in this country.
Opened in 1970, it's the place where locals decided, let's rebuild a mining camp and let tourists pan for disappointment.
You've already got a few up there. There's one, two.
Sovereign Hill is located in Ballarat, about 1.5 hours drive west of Melbourne. The easiest way is to drive yourself, or you can take a day tour from Federation Square. Another way is to take a train from Southern Cross Station to Ballarat Station, where you can take bus 21 from the station to Sovereign Hill. The train should take 1.5 hours while the bus should take 12 minutes. You need to buy a 𝗦𝗢𝗡𝗏 prepaid card from the train station or 7-Eleven to use public transport in Victoria. All the locations in my guide are also available as a Google Maps link in the video description. Also, YouTube says less than 5% of you are subscribed, so help a mate out and smash that like and subscribe button. If you don't wish to drive yourself, Viator has some great day tours available, and if you use our link below, it helps us out and doesn't cost you extra. Sovereign Hill opens at 10 AM, so if you arrive early and have time for breakfast, Beechworth Bakery is a good stop. Born in the northern alpine gold town of Beechworth, the bakery has grown into a small empire, scattering outposts across Victoria. Its Ballarat branch sits like a church for the carb faithful, warm, busy, and unapologetically feeding anyone who wanders in from Sovereign Hill or the station. It's not fancy, but that's the point. Country bakery sold with a crowd big enough to tell you they're good. Order the 𝗟𝗡𝗏𝗏𝗏 and you're holding an edible biography of Australia's famous outlaw. Golden pastry encasing chunky beef, smoky bacon, and an egg in its center. One bite and you're either heading for a nap or the nearest cardio ward. But you'll die happy. The egg and bacon roll is a no-nonsense alternative. A soft bun cradling crisp bacon and a runny yolk egg, all held together with just enough sauce to make you regret not grabbing extra napkins. It's breakfast stripped to its primal form, just fat, protein, and enough grease to power a small generator. After breakfast, we proceeded to Sovereign Hill. Arriving here, you find ample parking on site with an overflow car park on the lawn. Its story starts in 1851 when prospectors tripped over gold in the creeks around Ballarat. Within months, half the known universe was here with a shovel in a dream. Sovereign Hill was born a century later in 1970, as a sprawling outdoor museum you can walk straight into to relive that madness. Today is a chaotic playground of diggers' tents, coach rides, and costume locals ready to sell you a shovel or yell at you for loitering. After passing through the main entrance, you start at the historical campsite, a cluster of canvas tents and rough huts that smell faintly of campfire smoke and damp wool. This is how the prospectors live: cold nights, rough beds, and the constant suspicion that your neighbor might steal your shovel. Staring at the setup, you either respect their grit or wonder why anyone thought digging holes in winter was a good business plan.
So yes, Ballarat was responsible for generating a lot of wealth here through gold. This is the powerhouse of the democratic movement in this country. They would give us many of the rights and freedoms we enjoy today.
Nothing epitomizes life in the gold rush more than Sovereign Hill, where the ones who got rich weren't the miners, but rather the businessmen who sold mining equipment, and the dreams of striking gold. Coincidentally, Sovereign Hill also sells you bottles to store your gold flecks from your panning. After all, if the business model isn't broken, why fix it? Beside the campsite, you'll find the creek where the air smells like wet gravel and optimism. This is where 𝗧𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦 Ballarat lives on, not in dusty museums, but in a trough of muddy water where adults, kids, and the many tourists crouch over pans, convinced that today is the day they hit the mother lode. That twitch you feel as you swirl silt and sand? That's not bad posture. That's gold fever. The same bug that had prospectors sleeping under canvas in winter and blowing fortunes on warm beer. It's the irrational voice saying, keep digging, you're one swirl away from paying off that mortgage. Of course, Sovereign Hill knows the secret. The real gold rush here is the dopamine hit, not the payout. The gold in the creek is not natural. The management sprinkles new gold into the creek twice a week, approximately $50 worth, like feeding koi but with 24-carat snacks. The practice is part of the visitor experience to allow guests to pan for real gold. Without that top-up, you'd be crouching over a puddle of heartbreak. The routine is simple. Grab a pan, fill it with gravel, dunk, swirl, repeat. There are special places to dig in the creek that will yield better results. Just ask one of the friendly local actors and they'll point it out.
Yeah, you've already got a few up there. There's 1, 2, 3 that might have got on my finger.
When sunlight finally catches a flake, your lizard brain lights up like Vegas, even though what you found wouldn't cover parking back in Melbourne. Feeling adventurous? Descend underground on the gold mine tour as guys tell you about cave-ins and candlelit labor, while you silently thank modern workplace safety laws. There are 3 tours available, but I feel the Labyrinth of Gold is the best one.
Somewhere, we like to put it in neat piles. So we use the tower to lift the rock high, take it out, dump it.
This is where Sovereign Hill stops playing dress up and gets serious. You strap on courage, cram into a mine cage, and rattle down into Ballarat's underbelly. A dimly lit maze of quartz, timber props, and stories about men who gamble everything on shiny rocks. Down here, you get a crash course in how mining worked, back when safety regulations meant hoping the ceiling didn't cave in.
This is the miner's lunchroom. Just have a look as you pass it by. The tower. So if you're wondering how deep underground you are, go back up. When you go back up to the surface, have a look at the tower. At that height, at it underground, that's your depth, right? So, if you fell in that hole 1,100 feet, 330 metres, there wouldn't be much left of you. It'd probably take us a month to get your body out. So we're not letting you anywhere near that hole.
This is where company miners blasted through quartz with black powder, timbering every few feet to stop the whole thing from swallowing you alive. You see the old winches, ore carts, and rusty equipment that were probably left behind by the prop department rather than actual miners. The highlight is the non-company tunnel. Unearthed by accident during restoration, it's a rebel's handiwork, an illegal drive scratched out by prospectors who didn't fancy paying fees to the big operators. It's a middle finger in the dark to the company man, proof that gold fever made outlaws of otherwise sensible men.
The company mine. This area was discovered by accident. Sovereign Hill knew there was a tunnel down in this direction that led to outside. And they had another tunnel around that corner. And they wanted to connect the 2 tunnels. More exits, more air in the mine. So in the 1970s, they were drilling through solid rock right here, when they suddenly burst into this space. Nobody knew this was here. There was no sign of anything on the surface to tell them that this was here. But they saw pit marks in the roof. They found rotten timber on the ground and rusty tools on the ground. So they're pretty sure they know what it is. Do you know what it is?
Illegal mine.
Not illegal, but old. Much older than the company mine. So the company started in the 1880s. This mine is from the 1860s. So this is an independent mine. This is before companies are starting. There's 2 or 3 men working for themselves. They're starting on the surface, looking for quartz, right? They know there's quartz up on this hill, Sovereign Hill, so they're looking for it up on the surface, and they can't find any. Found 500 tonnes of quartz. 500 tonnes. It went 15 metres that way, 15 metres that way, 2 school buses full of quartz. Now, these guys are working in the 1860s. They had no access to dynamite or drills. They had a pick, a shovel and a wheelbarrow. And all of that rock, which they removed to make this space, they wound to the surface 1 bucket at a time. We think that took them 2 years. Do you think they found any gold? Yeah, well, you wouldn't even work down here for a day, would you, if you didn't? Of course they found gold. Now, how much? Well, in the company mine, all around the mines in this area, 1 tonne of quartz, which would be 2 of those rocks I showed you. 2 of those, 10 grams of gold. Remember though, that's $1,700 worth of gold for every tonne. So in here, 500 tonnes, you do the maths, it's 5 kilos of gold. 5 kilos of gold, that would look something like that, and be worth close to $700,000. Looks like they are, I know, but there's 10,000 tonnes of rock above those pillars. There's no way they're holding up the roof. They are important though. The miners have jammed those in very tight. What would you all do if those timbers started to creak and groan? Run, that's right, sir, you're very sensible. That is exactly why they're there. They're an early warning system that might warn of a possible collapse. When timbers creak and groan, the miners run. But if they run up there, it's a dead end. There's no hole in the roof. And if they run down there, it's a dead end. And these 2 exits didn't exist. They were solid rock. So can you see their exit, ladies and gentlemen? It is right in front of you. Down there, that's right. Doesn't seem sensible, does it? But that's only 2 metres down. 2 metres in that direction, along a short tunnel, there's a shaft all the way to the surface.
The Hidden Chamber tour was a bit of a disappointment, as it was just a video presentation flashed onto the wall, akin to school kids telling ghost stories around the campfire. It tells the story of 2 Chinese brothers who came to Ballarat to mine for gold.
The headman of our village. When father heard the stories of New Gold Mountain, he took it as a sign that great fortune was just at hand.
Back at the surface, blinking in daylight, you realize the tour isn't just about rocks or history. It's about the madness of chasing wealth through stone and mud, about people willing to crawl through a claustrophobic warren for a shot at glory. Above ground, there's the Poppet Head, a wooden lookout that feels 1 splinter away from WorkSafe shutting it down. But the view, worth every creep. It stands over the mine shaft to support the wheels for hauling ore and miners up using winding cables.
Guess who's here? Hi. Hi.
If you've never seen molten metal turn into a bar of gold, the gold pour demonstration is weirdly thrilling. Watching someone casually juggle liquid fortune while you stand behind a rope, that's entertainment.
Our job is to purify gold. Now, to purify something is to clean it, and in order to clean something, it must be dirty. The gold you find naturally straight from the ground is never 100% pure. It always has other trace elements in it. These impurities are usually different metals such as copper, silver, nickel, tin or iron. The gold found locally around these parts is what we call the golden triangle, which is from here to Wendouree to Ararat. is some of the purest natural gold you'll find anywhere in the world. It's already rated at least 22 carats, so at least 92% pure. My job is to take that 22 and then turn it into 24 karat gold, making it over 99.99% pure. The gold will be at the bottom, and the copper and silver, being lighter, will be bubbling up to the surface and getting stuck into my flux. My flux is a chemical called borax, and it acts as a collector. It collects the copper and the silver and forms what you call a slag or a crust or a foam, if it's easy to imagine, that sits on top of my liquid. All I then have to do is just pour out my liquid gold. And as I carefully do that, that crust will stay on the surface and then fall and get caught in here, leaving me with my pure 24 karat gold coming out the front. So the gold there is rapidly cooling down. It's transferring about 300 degrees worth of heat and energy into my mold. And by the time I finish this sentence, if I let this sentence go on for long enough, it'll turn back into a solid. Gold is a very good conductor, but it's a horrible radiator. I can explain that through a demonstration. This crucible, I can feel the heat coming off that all the way out here. This gold bar, still at 900 degrees, I can hold my fingers just millimeters away from this. I still can't feel any heat to that. But the second that you touch it, it offloads as much energy as it can, as quick as it can. Instantly combusting the surface. If I was to let this sit here, it would be hot enough to burn you for the next 3 hours. That's how slowly it's radiating away. So you guys don't have 3 hours to waste, and dry. So I'll place it in some cold water. Still icy cold. And it remains ice cold all day. What does happen though is there's less and less water in there. All of that water, the rate of heat transfer is just that quick, it instantly evaporates and comes out of the water. So all that energy goes up into the room. The safest way to figure out if the gold is safe enough to touch is simply to get somebody else to pick it up for you. Just kidding, I'll pick it up just like I have 100 times before. 99.99% pure gold, 24 karat, 104 ounces, 3 kilograms. And this is a very expensive, valuable, shiny, golden material. And back in 1861, this would get transported down to Melbourne, guarded by redcoat soldiers, to be sold at auction or melted down for sovereigns. Back in the 1860s, this was worth about 4 years of the average educated wage. When we had this gold bar donated to us back in 1997, it was worth 66,000 Australian dollars. When I started in this position about 2 years ago, it was worth $290,000. As of today, the gold has hit a record high, and it is currently sitting at $550,000. $500,000 sitting right there. So as you can imagine, there's very, very strict rules of who gets to hold it and touch it. Basically, that's just a few managers, the gold pourers, and then also anybody else who's sitting right there.
At the end of the demonstration, one lucky individual will get to feel what it's like to hold $500,000 worth of gold in their hands. I think the reason they only let kids hold the gold bar is that their short legs can't run faster than the goldsmith. After the demonstration, you'll be able to wander through the store with an opportunity to buy real gold jewellery or overpriced souvenirs. Located on the next street is the main street, which is the dusty, chaotic heart of Sovereign Hill's gold rush fantasy. The air smells like wood smoke, beer, and horse dung. The Bank and Gold office is the beating financial heart of the goldfield. Back in the day, this was where trembling miners came to weigh their luck with tiny pouches of dust and nuggets placed on brass scales. The Victoria Theatre is Sovereign Hill's answer to Broadway, for the kind of over-the-top performances like Little Red Riding Hood. Every afternoon, you'll be able to catch the Red Coat Parade, a living postcard from the British Empire, complete with bayonets, brass buttons, and the faint smell of gunpowder. These aren't just costume actors, they are history nerds with muskets, channeling the soldier who once kept order on Ballarat goldfields. Back in the 1850s, red-coated troops were shipped out to keep prospectors from rioting or skipping their mining license fees. Think of them as the original tax inspectors, but with cooler uniforms and fewer spreadsheets. The parade itself is pure theatre. Soldiers marching in perfect locksteps down Sovereign Hill's rutted streets, boots thumping, sunlight bouncing off polished brass. Kids gulp, adults reach for their phones, and somewhere, a history teacher is having a small quiet orgasm. Stick around for the musket demonstration, a sharp reminder that firearms in the 19th century were heavy, loud, and about as precise as throwing a rock. Is it campy? Sure, but there's something irresistible about the swagger, the uniform, and the idea that people once took this kind of pageantry seriously.
God save the Queen! God save the Queen! Hold on! Fingers in your ears! Fingers in your ears, everyone! Right sequence from the left. Squad freeze. Left! Squad out! Number one! Number two! Number three! Number four! Number one! Number two! Number three! Number four! Shoulder off!
During the day, there's also a demonstration of the musket firing, where police reenactors give you a brief history lesson of the weapons available to the police.
Loaded and ready to fire. What I'm going to do is I just clicked it back once, that was onto safety. The next time I click it back, I'll click it back 2 times. Then when I pull down on the trigger, the hammer is going to fly down, hit that percussion cap, which will create a spark, which will go through the chamber into the barrel, igniting that powder, which will then fire off the gun. I'll just wait for that siren. Actually, I've got a microphone on. Alright, I will let you know at this time that is going to be quite loud. So like this young man here is doing, I'd strongly urge you to all take your fingers and place them firmly in your ears. Sir, we all good? I had to check if there was any horses coming, because horses and big loud noises don't mix very well. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, fingers in ears, please, fingers in ears. Firing musket in 3, 2, 1.
He destroyed the tissue paper.
I did. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes the musket firing. Have a great afternoon.
The 1850s gold rush was also about building a town entirely out of timber and then pretending it wouldn't immediately catch fire. Hundreds of tents, timber huts, and candles. A disaster waiting for one drunk prospector to come along. Hence, the Volunteer Fire Brigade. By now, you're probably starving. 𝗏𝗡 Bakery is your salvation. A warm, yeasty haven serving pies, pasties, and vanilla slices so good you momentarily forget you're in a theme park. Order a beef pie, sit by the fire, and watch tourists walk past in full Victorian drag while you debate a second pasty. 𝗏𝗡 Bakery is more of a takeaway place for you to grab a pie and eat on the go. If you wish for a sit-down restaurant, there's the New York Bakery across the road. Sovereign Hill is dusty, chaotic, and gloriously historical, and that's why it works. It's a mashup of history and theme park, where you can shoot the breeze with a guy in suspenders, find gold flakes in a creek, and eat an old world pie, all before lunch. The gold rush may be over, but here is alive and kicking. If you haven't had your fill of gold, then across the road sits the Gold Museum, Sovereign Hill's serious sibling. Nuggets, 𝗟𝗡𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 memorabilia, and enough old photos to remind you that life back then was less quaint adventure and more back-breaking gamble. If you are wandering around Ballarat and your stomach starts growling louder than the red coat Musket line, follow the locals to Eclectic Taste Café and Pantry. Inside there's a low hum of chatter, sunlight bouncing off polished timber tables, and staff who know how to keep the coffee coming. The cafe is bright and homely, with polished floors, locals reading the paper, and travellers pretending they are not secretly Instagramming their brunch. Forget the sad, watery milkshakes of your childhood. This one is unapologetically thick, rich, and cold enough to remind you to bring a jacket. A sugar rush dressed as nostalgia. The egg and bacon roll is a perfect classic done right. Smoky bacon, a fried egg with just enough ooze, and a layer of cheese clinging to a warm roll. Lake Wendouree is a stunning attraction in the centre of Ballarat, and it hosted the rowing and canoeing events for the 1956 Melbourne Olympics. West of Lake Wendouree, you'll find the Ballarat Botanical Gardens, a leafy reminder that this town once had more money than sense. Opened in 1858, the garden was part civic pride, part Victorian obsession with cataloguing nature, and part, what do we spend all this gold on? The result? 40 hectares of old-school botanical theatre, carved into neat sections that still whisper about the old golden days. Key highlights include the Statue Walk and the Prime Minister's Avenue, and the Robert Clark Conservatory, a glass house that looks like it belongs in an Edwardian novel. Inside, a seasonal floral display so immaculate you wonder if someone polishes each petal before opening hours. Massive redwoods, oak, and cedar, planted by Victorians who clearly expected the British Empire to last forever. The Ballarat Botanical Gardens is a living time capsule of gold rush hubris, municipal pride, and a stubborn devotion to making things grow in the middle of nowhere. I hope you enjoyed this guide, and if so, please do give it a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.